I mentioned that the data analysis part contains descriptive statistics, for example. In this case, the code interpreter ran these already as part of the data preparation process up here, which is not a problem at all. Typically, we would do it in the next step though. Still, we can have a look at the table right here to see the row count, the mean for the specific columns, the standard deviation, and many other things. Therefore, I won't apply these statistics again, obviously, but instead, we could also calculate other numbers here in this analysis and visualization part. One thing we could be interested, for example, is how many products were sold on average on a specific weekday. Let's see if ChatGPT is able to identify the weekday based on the date and to then calculate this average quantity sold for each weekday. For this, I could say provide a table with the average quantity sold on each weekday. And we get an average of around about 50 for each weekday. Obviously, this dataset was created in Python by us, you saw that, so we can discuss whether this is realistic. Still, the important thing is that creating such tables and analyzing data quickly here with ChatGPT works quite nicely with the code interpreter. I don't want to dive too deep into the data analysis part though, because actually creating a table here is already a type of visual. Therefore, we can now continue with the data visualization already. And the code interpreter can create many different chart types, many different visual types. For example, I could turn this into a bar chart. If I do that, I get a bar chart with this information, now also with correctly sorted weekdays. As we are still working in the same sandbox, we can also refer to any kind of information that we have in our dataset. So for example, I could create a line chart with the monthly sales. And this brings us some important information. One thing is that we obviously forecasted our data a bit. Let's take it the way it is. And we also see we have some kind of low sales months at the beginning of 2021, 22, and 23. As said, these are not real data, but generally with that you can quickly plot your charts and see or find interesting data points in your data. We could also try to tell the code interpreter to come up with charts on its own. So for example, create important charts to better understand the data set. Let's see what this brings us. And now we get 4 new charts, more or less new charts. We had some of these already, with some additional information about what was displayed and also some insight about the data that is displayed in here. Now, of course, we could dive deeper here into the data, create more charts and so on, but the idea here was to give you a general overview of the capabilities of the code interpreter when it comes to data analytics. Therefore, let's now leave this area and let's move on with the next use case of the code interpreter. So let's move on from data analytics now to a maybe more exciting topic. Now it's all about image editing. This means we will see how we can use the code interpreter to analyze and transform images, to generate new images, and also to extract data from images. Data here means metadata, but also other things like text in an image. Really exciting things. What we need though are images. So attached to this lecture you can find 2 images actually, and we'll get started with the people image first. For this, once again, I'm back in a new chat with the code interpreter activated, and now we'll upload the people image first. As I said, you see that's a nice image, by the way, generated with Midjourney, with 2 people walking through the streets on a sunny day. So let's upload this image. And now we can play around with this image. Let's, for example, get started with extracting metadata, so image-specific information from this image. I'll just keep things simple and just add this prompt. So let's see. And that's quite good already. We get the format and the color mode. We get the dimensions, and with that we also get the aspect ratio. We get the size down here, and we get information about the last date when this image was modified. We get this rather cryptic timestamp here, and ChatGPT understands that this is not too helpful for us. Therefore, in the next step, it automatically converts this timestamp, and we see the last date and the time when this image was modified. So far so good. Now we could dive a bit deeper into the aspect ratio. I could calculate this on my own, obviously, but I can also ask ChatGPT to do this for me. So what is the image aspect ratio? And we get an aspect ratio of 1.78 to 1, so a typical 16:9 aspect ratio. Now let's say that instead we want to have a 4:3 aspect ratio for this image. So let's instruct ChatGPT to do so. So we change the aspect ratio to 4:3. It should understand what I want right here. So again, it takes a few seconds. And then we should get back a new image provided as link where this image can be found. Now let's see what this looks like. Not too bad, but actually this looks a little bit distorted in my opinion. So if we compare it to the original one, I guess this didn't work perfectly. So we can say that it should not distort it, crop it instead. So basically we use it kind of like an image editing program, but we just instruct it to perform the required operations for us. Now it's not distorted, but the people are no longer in the center of the image. So it just cropped basically from the right, but actually it should crop both sides, left and right, equally. Let's see if we can fix this. So left and right should be cropped with equal lengths. Let's see. So now if we download this, now it looks good. Not distorted. 4:3 aspect ratio, cropped equally left and right. So this is how we can analyze and transform images with the help of the code interpreter. Let's now see how we can actually edit our images in a bit more detail. Let's now edit and create images based on our people image. First, I want to dive deeper into the colors used in this image. To find out more about this, I could extract the color palette used in this image first. And now we get the top 10 colors used in this image. These are RGB values, so we could transform this to hex codes if we want to, but actually this is not too helpful for me because I don't know what these RGB colors look like. Therefore, we can now create a new image based on these colors, for example, with this prompt here. So create an image with the colors. Each color should be displayed as square, so we can actually see these colors in an organized way. If we check this, we get this nice looking color palette, so to say. We can also add the RGB code or the hex code below each square maybe. Let's also do this. So add the hex code for each color below the square. So this looks like a little font issue when trying to add the text below the square. Now this worked, but the text isn't readable, so we should maybe also change this quickly with this prompt. Now this worked. We can discuss whether this font looks good, but you get the idea. With this you can create such nice color palettes in seconds with the help of the code interpreter. talking about colors, we can of course also change the colors used in the image. So we could make the image grayscale. Now we'll see if ChatGPT refers to the people image or to the hex code image, because I wasn't very explicit about this prompt now. But ChatGPT used our 4:3 aspect ratio image with the people and made it grayscale. With that, we played around with the colors a lot, and one final thing I want to show you now is how to change the file type of the image. So at the moment we have a PNG here, but you can also save the latest version of the image, for example, as JPEG instead. So save the image as JPEG. Will then give you the grayscale image as JPEG, which you can also download and use then. So with this, we got the updated and edited image now saved in the file type, in the file format of our choice. Another really cool feature of the code interpreter when working with images is OCR, Optical Character Recognition, or in simpler words, recognizing text within a digital image. So if an image contains any text, the code interpreter is able, or should be able, to identify this text and provide it as output in your chat. So let's now upload the menu JPEG. And before we see if this OCR logic works here, this is what the menu looks like. So it's a dummy seafood menu basically, with some dummy text on it. Still, it has some formatting on it, some colors. So we'll see how the code interpreter handles that. Now, with this prompt here, we want to use OCR to analyze the image and to extract the text. The code interpreter, ChatGPT, should be aware of the OCR concept. And if we now compare what ChatGPT extracted from the menu and what the menu actually says, it skipped the menu part here, for example, but we have the crab legs, we have the crab cake, and the king crab, the shrimp cocktail. So it didn't too bad actually. The whole lobster part here looks a bit off, to be honest. It also states that down here that it wasn't able to identify all text of the image. It also mentions that the prices are all listed at $0, which is probably an error. In this case, it's just a dummy menu. So what we see is it basically works. It doesn't work perfectly, so you have to refine this a bit on your own, but still you have the text extracted from the menu, which is a great first step if you need this information. And therefore, that's another nice use case for the code interpreter.